So yeah, a quick intro maybe to our side. We're super happy to be here, super happy to meet all of you, and very, very happy to talk a bit about Sanity and show you mostly what Sanity is all about. I am head of business development at the company. Been here for around 3 years, sitting here in Oslo, Norway, where we also have a new office that we opened actually on Monday this week. So I'll be there, and we have more kind of spaces to meet. So if you kind of pass by Oslo, always happy to grab a coffee and meet in person there. And then I have a colleague here too, Simeon. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Dzień dobry. My Polish isn't very good. That's about as much as you can get out of me. Yes, I'm Simeon Griggs. I've joined the solution engineering team here in England a few months back. I was on the agency side previously, building websites for clients, many years on WordPress, but needed to evaluate the headless landscape and found Sanity, and it really is the CMS that I always wanted to exist. So I was happily using the platform there for about 1.5 years, but I've joined the team here, and it's my role on solution engineering to help everybody get the best experience they can and use Sanity the way it was designed, and on a happy path, all of that good stuff. So that's my role here.
Yep. And in terms of agenda today, we are thinking of doing kind of two main things. So first, I'll go through some slides about Sanity, kind of some of our clients, some of our use cases. Who are we, and what are we trying to do in this space and with our product? And then we'll go over to Simeon, which will take you through a guided tour. I'll call it Simeon, showing some different kind of Sanity Studios. Sanity is a very customizable tool. It's going to be many different things. And so I guess what Simeon will do is to show you some examples of what Sanity can be used for and how it can be customized. We typically run these sessions as, we call it working sessions rather than demos. So you are free to kind of jump in at any point to ask questions. We can dive into specific topics as we go, or throw questions into the chat. And when Simeon starts the demo, I'll keep an eye on that and stop him to ask these questions as we go. So with no further ado, I'll just go ahead and share my screen here. Do you see my screen?
All good, yeah.
Okay, great. So I guess we come from your world, actually. We didn't start I wasn't part of the company at that point, but our founders didn't start a software company to start a software company. It wasn't like, okay, the CMS space is huge, Episerver, Adobe, Sitecore, all of these players, are not solving their tasks in a good way any longer, and so let's start a CMS company and go after that market. Sanity was actually created as a tool for an agency. So we used to be an agency just like you, and we couldn't find a flexible enough content platform that both was kind of headless in nature, in the sense that you could reuse the content on different channels, whether that was print or mobile apps or websites or screens in offices or you name it. And also kind of decoupled in the other side, which means the user interface, where you actually have a truly customizable experience, allowing you to, through code, very quickly come up with the minimum version of what the client needed, and then not having a system hold you back over time in terms of customizing and changing it to how the client wanted to work with content. And as kind of their organization grew and the content needed to be in new places. So they created Sanity as an internal tool, originally created for a kind of a project they were doing for OMA, which is a Dutch architecture firm, where essentially OMA needed a centralized content platform to manage content for their website, making it kind of dynamic and fresh for anyone visiting that website. So it was auto-generating content depending on the location of the user that was visiting it, pulling images from Instagram and also internal databases. But then also a content platform for internal searchability. So architects, let's say they won a project to build a bridge, they wanted to have a searchable database to be able to find, okay, what bridges have we built before, who in our team were involved, etc., etc. And also the third use case was for their sales team to be able to, before winning a project, easily collate relevant project information, pictures, that they could put into printed books that they could bring to the prospects' offices and leave it at their meeting room in hope that they would get a call back. And so that was the first kind of use case, and they built Sanity for it. And then they realized at some point that, you know, maybe we're better off just focusing on the product side of things, letting others do the implementation. And so today we're a pure software company, SaaS solution. We work very closely with our clients through solutions engineering, which Simeon is one of our solutions engineers, working very closely with enterprise clients, being kind of the Sanity advisor, but we do not do any implementation services. And that's why Frontkom and other agencies are kind of an instrumental part of our go-to-market. Because of the customizability of Sanity, we need someone that can get Sanity up and running for our clients. And sometimes they have internal teams, but very often we need to link them with agencies that can help. So if we kind of go into some basic principles of Sanity and our content platform, we treat content as data. And we think that in order to build amazing product experiences, you must treat content as data. I'll get into what we mean with that a bit later. So Sanity, instead of being a CMS, we call ourselves the platform for structured content. And we're bringing database capabilities to the content management space through three different kind of domains or topics. The first thing is content as data. What we mean with that is that you decouple content from presentation. You have the ability to kind of build high fidelity data models, and you have a single source of truth. So no duplication of content. Everything should be kind of broken down into pieces. And then when you make one change in one place, you kind of change it all, no matter where that content is ultimately presented. The second thing here is customizable by design. The common things are very easy with Sanity. So if you need Sanity to just control a landing page with some content blocks to be moved up and down, upload some pictures, change some text, etc., that is very easy to get started with. But when Sanity really differentiates itself from the other players like Contentful or other headless CMSs out there, is that we can say that everything is possible. Because of the customizability of the platform and because the UI is open sourced, you are able to not only use the functionality and features that we have created, but create your own. Which means that if you look at our clients' Sanity installations, they look widely different depending on who they are and what they're using the system for. And that's one of the benefits with Sanity. The third part here is collaborative in real time. So we do not only focus on developers. We know that the people actually using the system day to day are typically business users, whether there are marketing teams or content editors sitting elsewhere in an organization. And so we focus a lot on them. We have a real-time platform which allows for real-time collaboration with content. Simeon will demonstrate that a bit later. Think Google Docs, Notion, other collaborative tools. And we'll continue to build out a lot of functionality there, making it a pleasant experience for business users. There's three components of kind of the Sanity platform as we see it. The first is the Sanity Content Lake. So similar to a data lake, we have named our database, the Sanity Content Lake. That is a hosted content backend. We currently offer two hosting options. By default, it's Google Cloud, but we do offer Azure as well, and we will offer other cloud providers in the future, very soon future, where that's an ongoing project internally. Simeon will talk more and show you more around kind of the content lake, ROC, and other aspects of it. But that is kind of the centerpiece of Sanity. Then you have the Sanity Studio, which is the user interface. This is a React single page application. Real-time content creation experience where you can create custom components for custom data. This is open sourced, so you get the access to the code for this, and you can do with it pretty much what you want. And then at the same time, we create a lot of functionality to it. We have now growing teams focusing on both applications for the Sanity Studio and also in out-of-the-box functionality. And then the third component here, which I think the developers here would really appreciate if you take a look at Sanity, is the developer experience. So that's how we look at this space. We look at it first from kind of the developer experience. JavaScript is the lingua franca, the universal language, and we empower front-end devs to create back-end solutions through JavaScript. We also have a very strong community with around 10,000 developers active, asking questions, showing things that they've built on Sanity, helping each other alongside our full-time community colleagues that are working there to answer questions. We also have great documentation and continue to focus on that whole developer experience, making it very easy to get to know Sanity as a product and making it very easy to kind of develop your knowledge and also give us feedback, frankly speaking. So we roll that into the product. In terms of what Sanity is being used for out there in the market, we have a lot of different companies with different use cases. To show you some of the kind of the most diverse ones, we have the city of Las Vegas using Sanity as a backend for an Amazon Alexa app. So that content is only audible by the end user. It is never visually presented, but the editing and the creation of the content is done in a Sanity Studio. We also have Lærdal Medical as another example of a company doing a bit of an edge case. They're using Sanity to host scenarios for medical devices. So these first aid mannequins here, where basically all of the metadata and the information about these scenarios are stored in Sanity, but then obviously kind of going through a separate application sent over to the mannequins. We also have companies using Sanity to control content for mobile apps or even e-learning platforms or print, so books, flyers, these type of things. I'll skip through these parts here because Simeon will show you these live, but there's a lot of fun stuff you can do visually with Sanity, presenting kind of dashboards and workflows in ways that make sense to the end user rather than the way we have thought about things. Integrations is a important part of our kind of platform value proposition. We are not going to create functionalities for all use cases out there. How we think about the world is that our job is to create generally applicable kind of features to the Sanity Studio. Think collaboration between editors and things like that. And then we will partner with best of breed companies within different domains to make sure that you have a very rich library with different plugins and tools you can make use of and also switch out over time. And for you, use different plugins and tools depending on the use case of your client. Things we have already in place today, if you look at the Sanity Studio, is, for instance, integrations with Google Analytics for feeding in kind of Google Analytics data directly into the Sanity Studio, creating a holistic kind of overview for the editors on how the content is performing. We also have clients that have integrated with Slack and other communication solutions. So let's say you have someone creating a piece of content, their manager gets pinged in Slack, follows the link and can review the content and send it to publishing. We also have plugins and tools for the Sanity Content API or the Content Lake. We have partnerships with BigCommerce, Commerce Layer, Shopify, and other e-commerce solutions where we work as kind of playing the content part and they solve the commerce part in one integrated solution. And we also have integrations with SmartLaying or Transifex, so translation solutions. So if you have clients that are have a multi-language and localization use case, there is potential to use automation tools that will automate the translation of content. To mention a couple of clients we work with currently. So one of our largest clients now are Burger King, or the parent company, RBI, Restaurant Brands International, that owns Popeyes, Burger King, and Tim Hortons. If we look at Burger King, they are using Sanity now to manage their website, their mobile app, and also the in-store kiosks. So these screens in the Burger King restaurants. So we like to say that anytime you see a Whopper in a digital format, it's from Sanity. What we gave them and why they came to us and not any other solution is the combination with being a developer tool, so that their own teams and developers can customize and very quickly iterate on the tool. And their marketing team that's actually using the Sanity Studio every day can get a very customized user experience, which speeds up their process, allowing them to only see and work with the content they need to, and not have a fully kind of monolithic system with a lot of tools and buttons and things that they don't use. So it feels like their own system, but then we've made it very easy for them to make it their own. NRK is another one you probably know from those of you who are from Norway. This is the Norwegian public broadcasting channel, Norwegian version of BBC, if you will. They're also a large client of Sanity. They are, as you can see here, they've customized the user experience in the studio according to how they want to work. And so these are some of the things we think is very fun, is when clients share how they're using Sanity and we see them doing things that we haven't even thought about. And their developers love it, and we're also getting great feedback from the editors, getting a very kind of nice and customized experience. In terms of other clients, we have a very wide kind of client base when it comes to both geographies and use cases. To mention some of the clients we're kind of most proud of, I would say, if you look at Norway, we have a lot of government clients. So NAV, the social welfare system in Norway, using Sanity a lot. NRK, I mentioned, Innovation Norway, public organization in Norway focusing on helping startups and promoting businesses. We also have Unilever that are now going to leverage Sanity for multiple brands, kind of one centralized solution for managing websites across different brands. We also have Eurostar, the speed train between London and Paris. Puma is a big e-commerce use case in Germany. Sonos is another one. And then the list goes on between all the way from kind of forward-leaning tech-native companies like InVision or Figma, or more traditional businesses like Burger King and National Geographic. So all in all, Sanity can be used for many different things. What we hope with this session today is to just open your curiosity a bit when it comes to our product, and hopefully you want to test it out for upcoming client projects. If there's no questions to what I've gone through now, I'll hand it over to Simeon for the practical demonstration.
Thank you.
Great. Simeon, do you want to take over?
Sure can. All right. So you should be seeing my screen now at the moment.
Yep.
Yes. So if anybody has questions, please type them into the chat or shout them out. Please stop me if you see something, then I just gloss right over it. Tends to happen. So what we're looking at here is the Sanity Studio. This is an open source React application, and it's the typical way that your developers will interact with Sanity data. It's entirely possible, because Sanity is so much more than just a CMS, it's entirely possible to get a great experience with Sanity, only ever reading and writing via the APIs to our data sets and asset CDN. So it's more, Sanity is much greater, and the content lake is much greater than just this editing interface. And it is much more than a CMS, but primarily at the end of the day, when your clients, end users, content authors, and editors are going to be editing content, they'll do it in an interface that looks something like this. This demo that we're seeing here is called Candy Corp. It's one that we put together for the purposes of these sorts of calls, because it contains an awful lot of features that Sanity offers, but also sort of the most common use cases for particular types of data to model. But just so long as you understand that what we're looking at here is just one customization. Those items you see down on the left-hand side are just the ones that we've declared for this particular project. They are not necessary for all projects. You define what is visible here through configuration files, which are version controlled. So the Sanity schema is defined in JavaScript, and you would write a schema definition file for each of these definitions that you see down the left-hand side. But what you show here in the desk structure, it's called, is entirely up to you as well. And it might look different depending on which user is looking at it. So if I go and pull this up with a different user account, you can see this is my admin logged in at the moment, so I've got access to everything. But to a different user, they might see actually far less. So I've got a different session open here at the moment in a different browser. You can see that I've got not the same level of permissions to see everything. And even beyond that, if I jump into one of these blog posts, I can see that actually I'm only a viewer on these particular documents here, where an admin would be able to edit. So what's important to understand here is that with Sanity, you completely configure the studio to how you need, because how it makes sense to your particular workflow or your client's workflow, their business logic, their goals, and you build the environment that they need to create the editing experience that they need. Yes, so that's down to what they see at any given time. That can be what they are locked in and out of, what they can edit, what they can't, and even what fields a user sees while editing a document may be based on a particular user's role. They only get to see certain fields on a document. So every part of the UI is configurable and editable. So you can, an experience can be as simple as you need or as complicated as you like as well. But if we start somewhere simple, let's jump in and take a look at a product here. And so the contrivance of this demo is that it's an online candy store. So I have here just products like you might expect to edit. And actually, I should go and pull up the schema definition files, because I do like these calls where I get to talk with developers, because we can actually show some code examples, which is just as exciting as the front end itself. So if we're looking here at the first field of content, this is a string field. We use developer syntax for the definitions of this schema. So this is a string field. This is a slug field. This is a number field. This is a string but has options. These are number fields as well, stored inside of an object. We have image fields here. We've got an array field where we can have multiple options here with references off to other documents. And we've got an object here, which is hidden by default with some additional options. But this is just the content model that we've decided is most fitting for a product page. But you could extend that into further things if you liked. You'd have hidden fields, read-only fields, and even conditional fields, which is a relatively new release as well. So I've got a product here, which is a physical product. So it makes sense that we would have dimensions. But on a digital product, we get a file download button because it doesn't make sense to show either of those fields depending on which one you choose. But say if for some reason this ebook turned into a physical product, we could have those fields there. So you can give these sorts of affordances to users that they only see the fields that make sense to edit. And those conditions can be based on values in the document or the role of the current user or even any other JavaScript library that you run on. And this is where this important distinction is. Because these configuration files are just JavaScript, it means you can apply all sorts of logic to your field definitions. So let's bump up the text size a bit so we can see this a bit more clearly. So this is what a schema definition file looks like in Sanity. So we can see here at the top, I'm importing things from packages like React icons, so I can style documents through the Studio. But also some of these fields come from functions, and I'll get into that in a moment. But basically, we have these primitives set for you. So this is what a schema file needs to look like. But here, that very first line, it's just a title field. And it has the type is string. Below that, we've got a price with the number. But you just build out these objects, and these turn into inputs on the front end. Your inputs can be you can have custom inputs, which we'll get to in a moment as well. But at a basic level, these are the sorts of fields you're defining. If we go down and have a look at that conditional field, here there's a hidden property on fields. And so we've got access to the document via the props that come into this function. And so we can say that this is hidden if the document if type is not physical. So the type is a field, but you're applying logic to fields. They're not just hard set. And when it comes to really complex logic, that's where I know personally I tried to build a UI at one point to generate Sanity Schema, but because you can apply JavaScript logic to everything, it's almost impossible to represent the flexibility of Sanity Schema in a UI. Or certainly not all aspects of it, because you can just customize things in as many directions as you like. So yes, that can be just plain objects, but even too, if you wanted to create fields that generate objects, you could do that as well. So I've got a slug field here that I wanted to run some custom logic over to generate these slugs and make sure that they're validated correctly. And all this means is if I go and delete this slug here, I'm going to get a validation error that it's actually required. And if I start typing my own, I should get a different validation error there because I've set in that function that these slugs need to start with /product/. So my generate function here was customized to go and make sure that the exact structure of the slug is correct, that it used product as the prefix, and then it used the title field and slugified that to create this slug. So this is a personal preference of mine for this pattern where Sanity becomes a single source of truth for all of your slugs, so you don't have to recreate that logic anywhere else. It also means if you reference this product, links to this product will be set in stone and unbreakable as well, because strong references are a key feature of Sanity, which we'll get into as well. So I'm jumping around a bit, but this is the basic, the most basic expression of the editing interface when it comes to Sanity. But we can get into some more complex examples here. So what about a blog post, another common example that you might have? We've got a few more things to look at in this one. In these particular blog posts, for whatever reason, we've got multilingual versions of the title. So I can see all of those all at once. This languages button up here is a plugin that we make available to show and hide particular languages. But languages as a concept in Sanity, they are not, it's not like there's a language pack or a language module. We have no opinions on your data or how you want to model these things. And because everything is just data, I can show you what that file looks like. That's the configuration file. And again, because it's all just JavaScript and it's all just data, this one languages file sets the languages for not only this widget, but also these fields, but also document level translations that we have, but also the Next.js website that is built off of this as well. So because everything's data and everything's agnostic, you can reuse your config files or your data wherever it makes sense for you to do so. But it only makes sense for me to edit English because it's the only language that I speak, so I can tuck those other ones away there. I've got another slug field here. I've got an author field. Inputs in Sanity can be completely custom, and if you're familiar with React, you can build your own. We've got guides out there available to help with creating custom inputs, and we also have a UI library as well. Where's the link for that? So we've got a UI library as well, which will allow you to build experiences in Sanity that look like first-class features. So using those components, this drop down here to show all of the authors on a particular article. Oh, don't want to get to that yet. This is actually a custom input. It's just using Sanity UI. So even though it looks like the rest of the UI, it is actually entirely custom. So however much complex of a component you want to build, particularly this becomes useful when you want to integrate data from third-party sources. So say you've got a client that has HubSpot and they want to embed forms on the website, but they don't want to have to go and copy-paste the ID from HubSpot every time. You could build a drop-down that hits the HubSpot API, grabs all the form IDs, pulls them into a drop-down menu, and you can just give the user that sort of very quick access to that data, which can be helpful. So in this particular model here, we've got arrays of reference objects again, and then we come to the rich text editor. So this is portable text, we call this, and this is the true expression of content as data, because what we're looking at here, there's no HTML markup being saved here, like in Gutenberg or anything like that. This is actually just a paragraph of objects as well under the hood. And if we want to take a look at that, we can actually inspect the data at any time. And let's have a look. So this is the English data as it's saved in that field we were just looking at. Portable text is not designed to be human readable, but we provide a lot of libraries to export this data and display it in React or HTML or Svelte, actually, is a new adapter that we have just this week from our applications team. So this data is stored and edited in a fashion that makes sense for your user content editors to edit, but it's not designed to be human readable, but it then outputs the correct attributes that you might expect. So if we have a look here, as we're editing text, because this is just an array of objects, that means you can put rich objects into this at the same time. So if I have a look at this button object that I've dropped into here, you can see it has a string field, text. It has a URL field here as well, but it also has a reference off to how to make a coffee as a blog post. Now, because this is a reference, this is saved. This is saved as a strong reference, and so even though this is inside of a button, inside of a rich text field, inside the English text, inside this article, it doesn't matter that it's buried so deeply, because the concept of references is so strong in Sanity. It means that that document is aware of this reference, and this document is strongly bound to that document. So you can't delete that document without first addressing this reference. And so that becomes a very powerful way to relate content one to another. And you can just search by, given this document, how many incoming references does this document have? So again, even deep down in the portable text field here, we have a strong reference. But users can format text as they like, author it here. You can drop objects into this as well. So even larger objects like this featured products button or section, this comes into here as well. And we'll show an example of that. So as users are authoring content in a headless setup, the missing piece really often is live preview. And that's something that we have great connectors for Gatsby and Next.js. So what we're looking at on the right-hand side here is a Next.js website that has a live preview server. I could even copy this link in here and paste that into the chat. You'll be able to have a look at this, and you should be able to see actually changes that I've made, because that link should authenticate you to at least see the latest version of the change as you've clicked the link there. So if you are logged into Sanity, you would also see these changes happen live, because it's using your session authentication. And unfortunately, I can't get you into the studio today, but very soon going to be able to get you limited time access while we're doing the demo. But you can see here what we're looking at. We've got a rich big block of text here, which sort of marketing teams always want this sort of thing, is that just, formatted text isn't enough. You've got to drop rich experiences in. So maybe it's embeds, videos, all that sort of thing can be dropped in here. We can also make sure that that looks good on mobile at the same time, and take a look at this mobile view while we're working. So this gives instant context to anything that's being written and we can see those changes take place in real time and get a great example of that. Sanity is designed to be used in multiple outlets, so it's not just for web views, but if you wanted to have like an application view of your content, print view, PDF view, anything like that, you can give this context to users as they're writing content, as they're authoring and editing things, and give them instant feedback. Another example of that is search engine optimization. So we've got another plugin here that feeds that Next.js live preview URL into the Yoast.js library, which powers the most popular WordPress plugin for SEO analysis. And we're getting live feedback here on changes as we make them as well. So again, this is more about giving context to the editors, and more of the story that I know I'm personally trying to tell around Sanity is that Sanity is very much a developer forward and focused product, but that doesn't mean that you can't empower users with really excellent content authoring and editing experiences. So to be able to get this sort of context while you're writing content, and I know I've been asked about when we've shown this pane off before, there's a bunch of SEO analysis tools, third-party API tools, and that sort of thing. And it would be possible to build integrations with them all, because when you've got content as data and you're working with a completely customizable Sanity Studio, you can just scoop up the data as I'm writing it, send that off to a third-party API, and then present the results of that in whatever fashion I like. So whatever you would like to put in these panes on the right-hand side, again, this editor, preview, SEO analysis, this is all just configured in our Studio file. So again, this isn't the SEO pack or the SEO module. It's just a plugin put into a view pane, of which you can make as many as you like. I've seen we've got demos of view panes for checking accessibility, things like that as well. So how far you want to push that is really up to your imagination, or up to the particular use case that your client has. Got some more demos here. This one's a bit over the top, but it's a good one to show. So we had a use case with a large media organization in Norway who had said that in their current system, their authors had to tag articles with 3 tags in order to publish them. But because their tag list was thousands of tags long, it's a laborious thing to try and search for the correct tag. But we've got tools available to us these days that can make these sorts of processes automated, such as machine learning and keyword extraction algorithms. So on the left-hand side, we're editing content. On the right-hand side, we've got buttons here to send the content we've written off to a third-party API to run an extraction upon it and go and extract valuable information about the content as we've written it. Now, it would be possible to run these sorts of things as we're authoring the content so that these lists of tags could auto-generate. But what this plugin here is doing is it is searching, it's taking the data that we've written, send it off to a machine learning algorithm. That's sending back data about the whatever we've asked to retrieve. It's location data, company data, person data. It's then checking the data set. Do we have a tag for that already? If not, create it. If so, present this button. And now that we have this button, I can just go and tag that onto this document here. So again, this example is quite over the top, but it just sort of shows just how far you want to push integrating the content you're authoring with third-party systems. There's really no limit to the sort of experience you can give that's very specific and but overall very useful to the person using the tool. So that's kind of the main cases to cover in the blog section there. There is another plugin, but I'll get to translations in a moment. The last thing to show here in this section is page editing. So another very common request is, can I have a page builder? Now, often we would ask, do you want a page builder? Do you really need a page builder? Because page building is sort of an anti-pattern when it comes to structured content. I mean, that's a whole other conversation that we could have as well. And one, obviously, we feel very strongly about. It's the whole impetus for the product existing. But landing pages sort of go against that, because I just want to put people profiles into columns on this page and that's it. Where we would talk about, well, people profiles should go under a people model, and you should be referencing those people. And perhaps if your website displays those in columns, that could be algorithmically driven. So as much as possible, content should be modeled as content, not as presentation. But marketing teams will always ask for a page builder. And so if you must, you can actually provide that sort of experience here. So we've got simply an array of objects, and this actually has the same objects that our rich text editor had. So you could just use the portable text editor as a page builder, really, with text in between if you liked, or filter out paragraph array objects, or make the document invalid if people insert paragraphs. Anyway, getting lost there, but you can create new objects here in this array. You can drag and drop those into order as it makes sense to do that. So we can see that preview's changed immediately on the right-hand side. Again, we can see the mobile view of that. People can jump in and make edits based on these blocks that we've modeled. You can have as many or as few blocks as make sense. Again, on the editing tools side of things, we have some image handling capabilities from right inside the studio again. So again, Sanity is very much a developer-friendly tool, but there's still great content editing experiences to be had, such as let's go and change the crop and a hotspot on this particular image here and get something that's a bit more suitable. Maybe we want to go for this other donut today. So that's a drag and drop page builder style of content editing solution that we have. When it comes to authoring content as well, I'll just close that pane off there. I did accidentally click on one of these links before, but you can review the history of changes on a document as well at the same time. So I can see that, well, who changed this? So 20 hours ago, I changed this headline, and a few moments ago, well, 29 seconds ago, I changed this image. And actually, I can see that we've been joined now. Jacob is in here changing the title of this document at the same time. So I've got this Google Docs-like collaborative editing experience where I'm not locked out of this document. I can still keep making changes to this document, even as Jacob's in here modifying some of the SEO details of this particular page. And if I'm not happy with the changes that he's written, I can just go back and revert that to what it was before. But I'm not locked out of editing the document. We can work together on this. And at any time, I can open up this and see who else is in the studio and jump around and take a look at what else anybody else is seeing at the same time. And you can jump to the document that that person's editing. So we get full revision history, and I can see all the history of the edits that myself and my colleagues have made over time, and I could jump back to, what did the document look like months ago, and change some of these things. So that's quite powerful. It can be legislated and required at times for like compliance, like having a full log of who changed what on a document. It can be very necessary. So that's really quite a powerful part of the editing experience as well. What else should we cover? So translations. I showed before in the blog post that you can model either fields of content to be translated, or as we're seeing here, we can model whole documents to be translated. And that, again, is a decision that is made around your document model. There's not one right way to do things, because you consider on a landing page, it's unlikely that, well, it is likely that every different region would want to have a very different, again, entirely different set of content. So it would make sense to make a unique piece of content, but related in some way for every region that you're targeting. Where when it comes to, say, like a model for a person will likely have the same photo and the same name in every region, but their biography and their title might change in every region. So it makes sense then to have one document, but with multiple translations of a field. So again, this is a decision that gets made around how your content is best to be modeled. But in this pages section, we have different, entire different pages of content. So you can see the German one's not very filled out. The French one has even more content here, but we can see the translations are happening at a document level. And again, these are the decisions that you get to make depending on your content model. And translations can take place, again, using third-party tools. So much like that machine learning demo that we showed there, you can also use third-party translation tools as well. So here's an integration with Transifex. We've got integrations with SmartLink and potentially others in the pipeline as well. It seems like every person we talk to has a different provider that they need to use. But we've built this tool that can typically adapt to most providers' APIs. But here we can tee up a new job and say we need to request German and Norwegian language translations of the document that we've got, send that off. Once that data is ready, we can pull that back into the document there. So these are third-party tools to help provide these translations. We've got Google Translate plugins as well, which can do sort of that machine translation if that's useful at a short notice to be able to make changes as well. So covering a lot of ground, there's still so much more to get through in this demo. I just need to drink for a moment while I take a breath. And please stop me rambling if there's any questions on what we've seen so far. So and more questions around the portability of data that we can demonstrate as well. So at the moment, this studio is targeting one data set, but we can very quickly switch between different data sets at any time. This is an extension the studio has that the typical setup is you've got a development data set, a staging data set or QA, and then you've got a live data set there or production. So we can switch between those at any time if that makes sense. Or with a CI/CD pipeline, you can make sure that, you know, when a branch deploy is created, that one should only target staging, and when the production deploy goes up, that one always targets production. And you could make sure that, you know, there's individual studios targeting individual data sets. You can then, with really our new roles API, which was released recently, can be incredibly granular with permissions as well. So you could create a situation where the typical one is around if you've got teams that are responsible for different languages of content. Say you wanted only the Polish editing team user role can edit Polish set content on the staging or development data sets, but they have view access to it on the production data set. That's a set of permissions that you can now create because of how granular our permission setup is. And that's become a popular request recently to have pristine production data sets that are view only, and then have tools to be able to move content from staging up to production. And then also to have specific roles that are around only being able to author specific content, and permissions can be based purely on even the value of a document. So if a document has a country value and that country is set to Poland, then I can edit it. But if it's set to something else, I can't edit it if my role is only editing Polish content. So the near limitless customization options with roles and permissions now as well, which is excellent. And then when it comes to moving data, we've got command line tools to be able to migrate content. You can set up aliases for data sets, so you can hot swap between data sets, say in production, say you're preparing a new production data set and then cut that over. You can copy those in the cloud, so use our infrastructure to duplicate your data sets as well. But then again, as my drive's been to make sure that content authors have a great experience, I've also got a plugin here that will allow us to migrate even individual documents between data sets. So again, because the concept of references is so strong in Sanity, you can't migrate content if it contains a reference, if that reference doesn't exist at the destination. And so like a migration like this will be checked at its source and its destination. And so this migration would fail if I didn't first go and get all of the references. So this migration plugin will do a recursive check to see if this document has references, and does that document have references, and does that asset have references. And so you can see here, just by clicking that one button, I've been able to scoop up every document that is actually affected to by or attached to that document, and I could move all 31 of those maybe up to production instead. So this is a tool that's available on our plugin website there, which can do individual documents, or if I'd like to do a migration there of, so let's do the entire article data set, I can write some grok, which actually that's something I should get into in a minute too. So maybe we want to move every article document up and all of its references up from dev to production, because we like to live dangerously, and we could go and get all 43 of those and send them up to production. So that's a plugin. Again, it's very helpful for users that need to migrate content around the place. Personalization, something else to talk about. It's an incredibly and increasingly popular request as well. So how can we store data in a way where we can send a unique request to the person that's visiting the website as well? Now, any countries on this list, we've got Sweden, Great Britain, Switzerland, Denmark, US, Norway, AU. I think there was people from Poland working there, so I better go and create a document here just to prove that it works. We'll do it live. Now, shipping to Poland. I can't say that in Polish, unfortunately. Let's go and pull in an image from Unsplash, which we've got a plugin here that will do that. Let's pull in a picture of Poland. It looks like Poland anyway, and I'm going to publish this document. So now we've got a document based on if anybody visits us from Poland, they'll get unique content sent to them. And to prove that this works for where I am, let's go to kedicorp.sanity.build. And if I open that up in an incognito window, there I get this banner, but I get the UK one. Now, if everybody else visits that link in the chat there, they should get content specific to where they are, so long as we've got a country banner document set. The way this is working, and it's a very basic idea of personalization, but this is hosted on Vercel, and on Vercel we get headers of the country that a person's located in. So we're just intercepting that part of the request to say, where is this person visited from? And then run a query against the data set to say, well, do we have a document? Do we have a special? Do we have a program, a project, something we can send to them individually? And in this case, it's just a notification banner on the homepage. I have responsibly set that to save that to local storage. So if you dismiss that, you shouldn't see it again. But you should ideally, and I'd love to get some confirmation that that live coding just worked, that you should ideally get that banner or one specific to where you are, because that query should be based on live data there. So again, there's it works. All right, got one confirmation. Great. So that's just a very basic idea of personalization there. But again, if you model up the content against the information that you have about a person on the front end, you're able to tailor the experience that a person gets. And really the full extension of this idea would, to take that sort of idea and pull that into the hero of the homepage and, have a hero for each region or something like that. That would be entirely possible to really extend that model out and show that sort of complexity as well. Some other things in this demo now have orderable documents. So curating the order of documents is something that we don't currently do out of the box in Sanity, because a document's order is a decision that you might make. So I published this plugin this week. It wasn't a lot of work to add this to the studio, but it's now possible to drag and drop articles into order as well. So this makes sense really for categories and this sort of thing, where you want to have a curated editorial order of things, and it would be possible to do this algorithmically. So you could order things based on the weight of the importance of the recency of the relevancy of something. But if you just want to have an order from start to finish on documents, it's well possible to be able to modify the sort ordering of one or multiple documents, whatever makes sense to how your setup works. So that's sort of the editing interface of the studio in this particular demo. Where you take that from there is entirely up to you as well. So we've got even more complex examples of this. This is a fully customized workflow process that we have example code for available. And so this is just a custom React component that was built by some of the team here, what we're looking at, but it interfaces with content in the Sanity Studio as well. So perhaps you have a client that has a multi-stage editorial process, and we can build an example around that, and so we can drag and drop things here into a particular order and update the state of a particular document. And if we go and have a look at what those documents look like in the authoring interface, you can see here when we say that every part of the studio is customizable, that's even down to the buttons on what actions take place when they're clicked and what logic dictates what button is available and which one isn't. So I can see that this button is typically publish or not. Here at the moment it's approve, which we could assign approval to that one. We can publish this one, and then we could request a review, I think, at some point on these as well. So we can assign particular users to these documents, send requests. Maybe that fires off a Slack notification to somebody. I think I have the option to approve it because I'm in the list of people that are assigned to this document. This code's all publicly available as well. And if we have a look, this workflow should have changed there. We did move some things about. So that's this is taking things to the extreme. We've seen some of our clients put this demo into production with thousands of blog posts. We had one group tell us they cancelled their Trello account because this now is how they manage workflows for projects internally. So it's quite remarkable the sort of experience you can give a team and see when Sanity goes beyond just websites as well. So for like that particular use case, Sanity to them is a project management tool of sorts. It interfaces with an online store that they run, but really they manage the state of their projects through Sanity documents as well. So you can really think, I'm loath to say it, but you really can think outside the box that Sanity is so much more than a headless CMS. Some other examples that we have is content scheduling calendars. So we could have a look at, say, this month of blog posts and get feedback on what documents are going live and when. Again, very useful for editorial workflows. We have more tooling around this coming soon, which is going to be really helpful as well. But we can see when documents were scheduled, who by, and go back and edit those documents if we need to go and make changes to them as well, and perhaps pull them out of the schedule if it makes sense to do so. So that's the editing interface on all of that. But I could speak to Grok next as well, which I think is interesting.
I don't know if you see people on the screen, Simeon, but it seems to be a question.
Oh, yes. So they're very small thumbnails on my other screen there. Yes, please. Please go ahead.
The PC is a bit far away to click the voice. Yeah, I have a bit kind of too much questions.
Go for it.
The features are extremely nice, but how they can be implemented, sort of. I mean, for example, this the approve or publish or QA button-ish feature. Is it like out of the box, or is it like from some kind of UI you should create them, or is some sort of plugins you need to install, or you need to code them?
Yes. So everything in the Sanity Studio is defined in code, but we have guides for every part of it. So what we're looking at with the buttons down here on the right-hand side, everything's got a name and is documented. So this is the Document Actions API. So if we had a look at Sanity Document Actions API, if I can spell, we have a look at that. We've got guides available on how to configure these things, and as well you can have custom badges off to the left-hand side if you want to display things. But yes, everything is defined in this sense that you register these functions. You then define the logic of when they should appear and when they should not. So maybe they're only on this particular document type, and only if this document type satisfies this particular condition. So yes, much like the Sanity Schema, I've got an example here. Yes, so much like Sanity Schema, they are defined in files, which are then version controlled and deployed when the studio is rebuilt. So yes, they do need to be created in code. Because they're just how far they can be, or just because of how flexible they are to configure. Yes.
Yeah, so there is no such thing like a UI where you can select, I need to have checkboxes, I need to have like publish button should have options like publish, unpublish, delete. So there is not such an option.
No, and much like Schema, Sanity Schema generator. Let's see if this thing is still live. Yeah, so I tried building this a long time ago, and this was trying to define those schema files by writing this into some sort of UI. So this sort of thing is something that I personally tried to build off my own back, but at some point, Sanity Schema and Document Actions and all these things are so near infinitely flexible, it would be impossible to show off all of the use cases or all of the logic of what's required to build out those things. So building out a and obviously in the future, it'd be great to have a like a no-code way to do these things, because that's where a lot of products are going. But how many systems you can impact by having a button, or the number of rules around whether that button shows, because that might be based on the user's role, based on the document, based on document values, based on document schema, based on which data set you're targeting. We can only provide that near infinite flexibility if it's written at a very low level and defined in code. And then too, with things like defining schema as well, your front end or where that data is retrieved, even if we could let you define schema and things inside of the UI, front ends would need to be reflected or updated to reflect that new schema structure anyway. So yes, I know it's certainly on the roadmap for us to be able to have no code ways to build these sorts of things, but at present, everything is defined in code.
I kind of like it because you have a bit more flexibility also. I am always skeptical about the performance. If it is UI customizable, so you need to have like several thousand button options, several thousand like input options. So imagine you need to load some million options. Suddenly.
Yes. And it's easier to blame somebody in version control than it is to find out, which staff member at the client went and changed the schema, which is a situation that I imagine you could get in with other providers that do allow you to edit schema in the UI. It seems like a potential foot gun in a lot of ways. So yes, strong agreement that version controlling things in code is much safer.
I have some other questions about a bit more back end of this, like data storage. Should you get to that, or?
No, I'm happy to answer that because it's not a very visual topic, so I sort of didn't have anything to show on the back end thing. But yes, so data is stored on Google Cloud at present, and it's all GDPR compliant and all of that. So we maintain the hosting. That's the part of the product that we look after. This Sanity Studio front end, you can deploy this wherever you like. Anything that can host a single page application like this, you can put it there. We provide hosting, so there's this Sanity.studio hosting that you can put things on. But yes, the assets, the CDN, the cache, and all this, the content itself, that's all hosted by us.
I mean, the database, which kind of database is used? Is it up to the user to select, or is it like?
No, that's defined in our infrastructure. So that's just part of the magic of Sanity, is that we have those real-time rights, read and writes on the data sets configured. But yes, there's currently no option to choose where the data is hosted. This is one of those situations, Jacob, where I'm not sure what I'm allowed to say and what I'm not, because I know there's future developments where you will have some amount of choice about which cloud provider, but it still won't be like, you won't just like bring your own SQL database. That's not how Sanity is designed to work.
Yeah, I can jump in quickly on that. So I think it's more or less what you said, Simeon, but you will see Sanity offering multi-cloud very soon. It will first be Google and Azure, and then we'll have others in the near future. So that's definitely where we're going. Right now, it hasn't been a big friction point. We never lose clients because of that, but we see that larger clients typically want to use their own solutions. So we see that we need to offer that as part of kind of our fully finalized kind of enterprise offering.
Yeah, thank you. But sorry, a bit more into the database. Still, the developer needs to write some logic to interface the database. Is it, or
in the sense of like retrieving data from it?
Retrieving and also storing.
Yes. All right. So yes, we could probably talk about Grok at that point. So we have a language for querying data, and we have a fully documented HTTP API to be able to send mutations and queries to the data. And we have a Node.js client, and there's a few other clients out there as well in order to update data on the database. So it's, yeah, as I said at the start too, it's entirely possible to get a rich experience of treating Sanity like a database in a lot of ways. In that you get those real-time changes, and because the studio updates very quickly too, I find it a very satisfying thing to be doing massive migrations of content into Sanity, because as you're running import scripts or pulling in data from third-party sources, it will update live in front of you in the UI, which can be really excellent as well. But yes, there is a fully documented Sanity HTTP API, which is detailed to send queries and mutations as well, which is yeah, so all the details are there, which is perhaps what you're looking for. When it comes to querying data, we have this language called Grok. Maybe Grok.dev is better for showing this, although I've not actually done this on a call before, so let's learn together. So Grok is our language for querying data. We do have a GraphQL endpoint as well, which you can deploy, but Grok is the language that we use. And there's more features to come around Grok and webhooks as well, which is soon to be launched. But yes, we have this language here, which is not terribly difficult to learn. There's a bit of a learning curve on this, but it's the way that we see that it makes sense to query JSON structured data. So if I was to run this document here, I'm pulling in, I'm destructuring essentially just the title of documents where the user ID field equals 2 and completed equals true. I'm not, so the JSON here is on the left-hand side. So I could change this at any time, and I should be able to just say if something's not completed. Yeah, then I can pull different sorts of documents off there. If I wanted to actually show the user ID in the query instead, I can write that there, and maybe I want to pull off that request out of the query as well. So you can see how that structured data is coming back as JSON, and it's pretty expressive to be able to write this Grok. The real power in Grok, though, becomes some of the functions that you can throw into this. So you can do comparisons, uppercase, lowercase. You can have fallbacks. So query this thing, and if that doesn't exist, then query that thing instead. Coalescing things, having variables with string concatenation. There's all sorts of additional features to Grok, and it's really powerful and very expressive compared to GraphQL, which again, we've got an endpoint for. If you like GraphQL, you can certainly use it, but there's a lot more flexibility in Grok to be able to pull this data off. Once you've sent a query to our CDN, that's cached as well. So your first query, if that takes 150 milliseconds, the next one won't. But we cache every request because they just turn down to HTTP requests. So it's a very fast way of querying data as well. So there's a bunch of different examples there with Grok, and as I said, there is a slight learning curve to it, but find a lot of people who start with GraphQL when they're querying data from Sanity, because that's what they're used to. But once you give Grok a try, typically easy to win people over. GraphQL is there because Gatsby requires it. Next.js, you could use either, but with a lot of our Next.js sites, it seems to work a lot smarter with using Grok queries. And because they are just written down to strings as well, you could very easily, I don't think it's going to work here, but to drop in variables into your queries as well, and just concatenate strings together to build queries programmatically as it makes sense as well, is just a matter of writing JavaScript to do that. So that's a very quick overview of Grok, but Grok.dev is this playground here. But yeah, it's designed as a way to query data out of JSON. And we've also got a feature coming soon. I think it's in beta at the moment around Grok-based webhooks. So we have webhooks at the moment, which just fire every time a document is updated, created, or deleted, and you just get the ID. At that point, you then have to intercept the ID, query the client, run your own logic. So you've got to build a serverless function that intercepts those requests and then runs the appropriate logic based on what you want to do. With our new version of webhooks launching very, very soon, you'll be able to say, you're able to define with a filter written in Grok which documents should fire a specific webhook. So say, only fire this webhook if a product document stock level falls below 5, then you could send it off to a webhook that performs some action, and you can use the details of that document, of that change. You can even compare the delta between the before and after documents. So you could say if the stock level was 6, then now it's 5, and you can use that data then to create a message. So you don't need to use a serverless function or a function in between, because you could write all of the logic to then take that data and send it off to another service. So, and I'm just coming up with this off the top of my head, but if you wanted to fire a Slack notification every time a document or like a product falls below a certain stock level, you'd be able to write all of that within the one webhook without needing an additional service. So Grok is very useful to learn for querying documents, but it's also sort of all the extended features of Sanity as well will use Grok. So that's where it's very handy to get an understanding of the best ways to query and interact with data from inside of Sanity. So that's sort of that on Grok. I'm not sure I have much more to demo about the product that I can think of. I think it was pretty comprehensively got into every corner of the Candy Corp demo, which you don't always get into everything there. But if there are any other questions or things we'd like to see off the back of that, I'm looking for any other hands. Otherwise, that might be it.
Okay, a question regarding the front end. So seems like you're favoring Next.js somehow over Gatsby just because of the Grok stuff. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say favoring. I'd say if I was to editorialize, I'd say the market is favoring Next.js over Gatsby at the moment. But no, we're doing an awful lot of work at the moment to improve our support to Gatsby as well, so that even these new webhooks should be working with to improve the live preview update on Gatsby. But it's just a matter of Grok was the language that we'd always had to query data, but Gatsby only really supports GraphQL. So that's why the endpoint was created, to support Gatsby, I believe, primarily, and all the other use cases where people want to use that. But no, we've got tooling out there for Gatsby, for Next.js, and more tooling out there for Svelte now, because that also seems to be where a lot of attention is moving. We've got adapters out there for Eleventy and demo code as well. We've got some of our enterprise clients pushing sites live on Nuxt. I believe one of our biggest clients actually is using Nuxt. Again, I'm in that department where I'm not entirely sure if I'm allowed to say it, but no, we've got a lot of people using different front-end technologies. Next is a personal preference of mine, and we have some good tooling around that. It's probably the easiest live preview server to set up, and that's why we use it for this particular demo. But because queries are listenable, because everything is really real time and queries are listenable, it would be possible to build preview servers for anything. I have seen a demo of a live preview Sanity server in Eleventy, which is about the most sort of plain HTML site builder, but I think can run now in a serverless function is how it works. And because you can just listen to changes and then project those changes through to something, it would be possible to build a live preview server basically for anything. So no true preference, but yeah, trying to provide as much tooling for the most popular platforms.
Great. If there are no more questions, I might just, I know we have 15 minutes left. We don't need to use all that time unless you want to, but I thought I'll touch upon a bit how we can work together. So now you have seen kind of a bit more about Sanity. You have met Simeon, which is one of our solutions engineers that would be working together with you should you want to introduce Sanity to one of your enterprise clients. We always assign a solutions engineer to that project to kind of be the Sanity guide, if you will, helping you get up to speed on the product, and also being kind of drawing best practices from existing clients. So as you've seen, Sanity can be many different things, and so we learn from all of our clients and try to leverage that and help you. In terms of our sales process, or how we can work together with you should you want to test Sanity out. I'm trying to share my screen here, and I think I am doing that. This is just a timeline, probably very similar to what you see other vendors are kind of operating with, but this is our version of it. So if you have a client, if you think Sanity could be a good idea, I mean, obviously feel free to just spin up a Sanity project from our website, talk to me or Simeon about kind of questions you have and work by yourself, but also feel free to reach out to us to set up a demo. We can either prep you in terms of demonstrating Sanity, or Simeon or one of our other solutions engineers can go through a very similar demo to what you saw today, a bit shorter, typically touching upon the requirements that your client is having. Then after that, if the client says, okay, this will be interesting to test out, we do offer managed proof of concepts, 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes 4 weeks, depending on the scope and what you need to prove, where we set up a Slack channel for day-to-day support. So you as kind of the implementation partner also get to, during the POC, work very closely with us so that we can also develop your competence and understanding of Sanity and help work through different topics in a Slack format. And then we also set up video calls with Simeon or other solutions engineers to go through topics and questions you have along the way. So that's typically 2, 3, 4 weeks with some calls as kind of intermediary steps to pick up all questions and reflections you have. And then should the client choose to move forward with us, we then sign a contract, and then we kick off onboarding, where we typically work together with you as implementation partner to make sure we help you kind of scope out the different stages of your Sanity implementation, and make sure we set up follow-up sessions in terms of what is useful, whether that is one session for localization or content architecture or different plugins you want to leverage. So this process is designed in a way where you pay nothing at this stage, so that you can ideally get started with the only risk being the time you spend testing out Sanity. And then should the client choose to move forward, ideally you keep working on the same project in the same Slack channel, and you don't lose any of the work you've done evaluating it. So that's a standing offer. We're quick on the kind of trigger, if you will, in terms of initiating these processes. So you shouldn't feel the bar is very high. And we're happy to talk about any client cases if you just want to talk through them and see if it's a good fit. And as mentioned, we do demos all the time, and that's kind of a great way to show some of the potential of the platform. So I guess that's what we wanted to go through today, Simeon. Any questions or comments? Or else I think that was the final part of the Sanity show today.
That was very good, guys. I must say I was very surprised to see the nice migration features for content staging. That was really impressive stuff. So well done.
Thank you. Yeah, so that was a migration plugin we built just recently. Again, bringing that sort of editor experience. I'm not sure what everyone's history with WordPress is, but one of my most go-to plugins was a migration plugin, very much like that. And I'm not the greatest developer, but I see it as sort of the power of Sanity that I was able to build one of my most necessary plugins from WordPress build that inside Sanity, but actually more powerful because it can be per document or per query within like under a week, because the underlying decisions of how content is structured just mean that you can always lean upon things being very consistent. So yes, like building tools like that migration plugin, they're just building upon like years of very well made decisions underneath that make the foundation of Sanity.
Impressive.
Okay. Thank you so much for being with us. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank
Happy
you.
to do it again, and enjoy the rest of your days. I understand there's various workshops and stuff like that, and let us know if you want us to do this again or a version of it. Always happy to talk about Sanity. We're not only working here, we're quite excited about like the journey we're on, and we want to help you evaluate if this is a good fit for your future clients. So thanks a lot, and hope to speak soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.